It is officially election day, everybody. Now, I said I was done. My last two videos I did that were predictions. I did my last two videos, my last two predictions for the Senate and for the governorships, but I kind of thought, you know what? I have changed my mind just a little bit. It's not a massive change. I'm going to kind of show you the swing and then just kind of do a general breakdown. Now that it is election day, I just want to put out this is my final gubernatorial prediction, and I'm also going to be doing a Senate prediction. That will be my next video. So, starting off, I'm just going to get right into it because no point in doing all the basic ramble that I normally do. It's already election day. We're just going to go right into it. So, this will be the normal, safe breakdown of states that we've been seeing throughout all of my predictions. These should not surprise you at all by now if you've been watching my channel. As you can see, these will be the safe states. This is a bit of a change from the safe states that we had in the last prediction that I did. That will be here. I will compare them after the fact, and then I will just show some polls for some of my predictions, just explaining it a little bit. Kansas, we haven't had a lot of polling almost at all. I did have it as likely. I still think it'll be likely despite some of the polling we've seen. Oklahoma, the polling is just completely off there. I'm almost certain Oklahoma goes safe. If not, it would go likely, but at the end of the day, still safe. Now, Arizona. Actually, no, we'll work left to right. So Oregon, I had this as lean. I still think it could be lean, but right now the margins have gotten closer. It seems like momentum's not as much on our side anymore. So overall, I do think the state of Oregon at the end of the day, I think the reason is a lot of those third-party voters were voting independent or whatever, voting for the left-wing candidate that was running on the ticket, has kind of realized, oh, if we vote this way, we're splitting the vote and the Republican wins, so a lot of them have probably switched back to Nina Kotek, unfortunately. However, it's not completely lost, and I do still think it is winnable, and I do think we can pull that out. Now, I also think Nevada easily is winnable. If we look here, we go to the state of Nevada, which would be Joe Lombardo. Easily, he wins this. He's got a 2.3 lead overall, and other than one garbage outlier poll, he's ahead, and he's been ahead since September 14th. Actually, technically longer. He's been ahead since September 1st. So literally the beginning of September, he's been ahead. This is, again, one of the few states where Democrats are usually underestimated a little bit in polling, but if you take out the outlier overall, and especially with the current trends and momentum, Lombardo is ahead, and he wins this. And I'd say he wins it pretty easily in a lean margin, probably about 2, maybe 3 points. Now moving on to Arizona, this one's Kerry Lake. That one's easy. I still think that one will go likely. We've seen some of the polls have gotten a little closer, but again, that's just including one outlier poll by Marist that has Hobbs leading when every other poll says otherwise. And you can see her margin is still quite high. I don't believe that Hobbs got really that much closer recently, and I don't think she's anywhere near almost 50% in some of these. Easily, Lake should get probably, I'd say, 52 to 54%. Lake could even win it by upwards of 8 points. I doubt she does. I think the 4-ish to 6 point lead is the most likely. Again, Republicans are underestimated at least a bit in the state, not a whole lot. So at the end of the day, I do think this will be higher. And that easily gives Kerry Lake, I'd say, a likely margin. Now, moving on from that, now we have the state of Colorado. That one was Jared Polis. Pretty much most of the polling I've seen really doesn't have Colorado as winnable. At the end of the day, probably goes likely to safe. Trafalgar, I believe, has a poll for Colorado that was fairly recent, but I don't think it's winnable. If I can find it. Yeah, I can't find it. Yeah, Colorado governor race. As you can see, it's pretty far apart. It's about 7 points on their polling. Yeah, Trafalgar group right here, 7 points. Probably won't be won. Doubt it would go below a likely margin at this point. Polis, again, does well with independents, so he probably wins that. New Mexico, this one, unfortunately, I thought this one was winnable for quite a while. This one is hard. This one I'd say is a pretty big toss-up. As RCP even puts it, like, unfortunately, I think Lujan Grisham will probably win at this point. It's an unfortunate situation. I still think Trafalgar's much more accurate than most of these other pollsters. The Emerson is generally a fairly accurate pollster as well. So I would be inclined to generally believe that it be closer to this margin. Either way, I at the end of the day do think it'll be within a tilt margin, but I have to give it to right now. I have to give it to Grisham, unfortunately, but I could see it go back the other way. It depends. We will see. We'll see today, actually. We'll see a little bit later. Well, unless obviously the Democrats, as they've been saying, it might take us a few days to count. The longer it takes them to count, the less you should trust the results. Just something to put out there. But you know what? Even despite that, the red wave is just guaranteed, but only if you vote. Just remember that. Everybody has to get out and vote. Do not forget to vote. Bring everyone. Don't get complacent. Otherwise, the red wave will not happen. We can turn the red wave into a red tsunami if you bring as many people as you can to vote red. Now, continuing, we have the state of Minnesota. That one I had going blue, I believe, in the last prediction. Minnesota, as you can see, it is potentially winnable. Again, I'm still more inclined to believe a Trafalgar poll over two pollsters I don't know a whole lot about, and I haven't seen a whole lot from. This one still has a large amount undecided, but it was also quite an old poll. There hasn't been a lot, again, out of the state, so it's hard to really say what could happen. But at the end of the day, I think this is actually a flip. It's a bit of a stretch, but I think Jensen can flip it over Walz. Now, the state of Wisconsin, that one I'm not even going to bother entertaining. Michaels will win that. Illinois, I am changing the rating a bit. I think Pritzker probably only wins it by a likely margin at this point, not safe anymore. That's the only real change. I still think Dixon wins it. If we look here, we look at the state of Michigan. It's gotten a fair bit closer, and if you take out this ridiculous pollster that has Whitmer ahead by 11 points, you can see it's much, much closer. Much closer, and I think, was there a Trafalgar poll recently for the state? I was pretty sure I'd seen one. I did see a poll recently that had it within a point, and there's none here as of now, but I think it is winnable, and I'm praying that Tudor Dixon wins. Again, if you live in Michigan especially, get out and vote. Make sure you vote Tudor Dixon. You vote red down ballot, because Republican is going to be better than Democrat almost 99% of the time. Even if it's a Rhino Republican, you vote for them because, hey, they may be bad for a bit. They'll vote better than a Democrat, and then in 4 years or 2 years or 6 years, whenever their term's up, you primary them and replace them with a better Republican, because an incumbent Democrat is harder to replace than a Republican in place and primary them. Moving on, Pennsylvania. This one, polling has been atrocious in the state. Really atrocious. Like, I'm not inclined to believe almost any of the polling we've seen out of the state of Pennsylvania when it comes to the governorship. I just don't think there's that many people that will be voting Shapiro-Oz. It just makes no sense that there would be that large of a vote split. When we see that the PA Senate has had Oz ahead for quite a while now, he's probably leading by 2 to 4 points in most polls at this point. And then we see the Pennsylvania governorship, it's like 4 points down here for Mastriano, which, again, I just don't believe. And Pennsylvania, Republicans are usually underestimated in the state of Pennsylvania. As you can see, underestimated by about 2.2 points, so 7.6 on their average, but I'm sorry, it's not going to be a 12-point or a 14-point margin. It's not even going to be an 8-point. It'll be within a lean margin for whoever wins it, no matter what. It won't go anymore. They think it'll be a dem hold, but I think this is the cycle that Republicans can flip the governorship, despite all of the people saying, no, 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 it won't happen, or all of the skeptics, the critics. It's just, I'm sorry, it's going to happen. It will flip. You need to have faith in Doug Mastriano. He's a great candidate and a great guy. He truly is an amazing man. I haven't really seen anyone campaign like he has. Now, of course, he hasn't had the best luck with campaigning because, well, the RNC and really just the establishment is against him. They don't want somebody like him because, well, he's not going to help them. He's going to be in a threat to them. That's why the establishment doesn't support Trump, because Trump is a threat to them. That's why they don't help people like Mastriano, because they see Mastriano as a true threat. Now, moving on, we have the state of New York. Again, can Zeldin flip it? That's the question. This one could be a pure toss-up. We really don't know at this point. Like, most polling still has New York in the Democrat column, but there was a Trafalgar poll that had it tied. Now, again, people are going to say, oh, well, Trafalgar's bad. They are usually one of the most accurate pollers. So I don't know where you're getting that idea from. And actually, I had someone told me they did some, I saw a comment where they did some calculations over like the last 10, 20 years or something of the polling in the state of New York. And they do, on average, I think 2 or 3 points underestimate Republicans. So it is possible that this is closer as well. Which is, again, it's hard for me to really say what I think will happen in the state, because of the states here, I do think it is actually a true toss-up. Like, it might sound a bit wish-casty to some people. They might think, oh, you're just Republican, Well, as you can see, Zeldin is leading by almost a point in this poll, about, I think, 0.8. So, yeah, not necessarily likely. At the end of the day, I still think New York will stay Democrat, but I think it only goes in a tilt-to-lean margin. I think Hochul's done that bad, and I do think it is very possible if Republicans get out and vote, they get out because they have the enthusiasm, they have the energy on their side, they have what they need to win. If they can get out and vote, they come out in numbers, they bring people, they call people, they tell everyone they know, their family, everybody they know to get out and vote Republican, they vote red, you could very well see the state flip. Very well, very, very well could see it happen. It's not likely. It's not even guaranteed. And the fact that it even gets close is a pretty big warning sign for Democrats. Like, yeah, we may not win the state now, but just getting it close enough should set off alarms for them. It should, and I'm pretty sure it already has, which is why they've been speaking like they have recently. Oh, well, it's going to take a while to count, or, expect the Republicans to do something. Like, they're scared because they know that this red wave, this red tsunami that could even be coming, is going to crush them. But again, it only happens if you get out and vote. Cannot be complacent. I cannot make that clear enough. Again, moving on, Connecticut, Rhode Island, both of those will be likely. Not really much of a change. The only change being here, Connecticut. Rhode Island actually could be a little closer. We don't really know a whole lot. Like, the incumbent that barely won his primary, it's not very popular. So that could be an issue for them, but we'll see. And then lastly, we have the state of Maine. This is the last state to look at. If we look quickly at the polling, it's gotten a little closer lately, down from where it was for this short period of time. Earlier on, it was actually closer here. I think LePage has the potential to win. Janet Mills probably wins. Unfortunately, I don't think Republicans will win it. You still have to consider there's the underestimation by polling of Republicans that just consistently happens no matter what. But at the end of the day, I do think that Democrats hold it, as you can see. I think they hold it, but only in a lean margin, not a likely. So this is what I think the final result will be for the gubernatorial elections. This is my final prediction. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Now, let's quickly compare. This is what I have right now. This was my past prediction. As you can see, the big difference is being Oregon, I think, will be a bit closer. I think Minnesota will be a flip compared to my former prediction. Illinois got a little closer. Unfortunately, New Mexico, I think, flips back into the Democrat column in this case. I think New York gets a bit closer. As you can also see, Maine, I think, gets a bit closer, and so does Connecticut. Otherwise, the rest of these stay almost exactly the same. So, tell me, what do you think? Let me know in the comments, what do you think will happen by the end of the day? Do you think we'll actually have results by the end of the day? Or do you think they'll drag it out for another week? Do you really think we'll know the final result of the gubernatorial and the Senate? Do we really think we will know? Let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, that's all for now. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please consider subscribing if you are new. And remember, get out and vote.